This podcast contains adult language and stories of true crime. If you don't like laughing, crying, or being horrified at the actions of other humans, this podcast is not for you.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 6 of Resolved Mysteries.
Hi.
Hello.
We're so happy that you're here. I'm looking at when this episode's coming out, and it looks like it's the day after the 4th of July. So if you are an American listener, we hope no one blew their fingers off from fireworks and that you had a fun time, even though it's a weird holiday. As many of you know, for every review that we receive, we donate $1 to a different organization. And this month's, for the month of July, is the Epilepsy Foundation, which was recommended to us by our patron, Ruth. So go to Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen and leave a review, and they mean so much to us. And then you'll also help us help out the Epilepsy Foundation. Speaking of patrons, Ruth got the honor of nominating a nonprofit, which is one of our Patreon perks. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/resolvedmysteriespodcast, and you'll get access to ad-free episodes, 2 additional episodes a month, early access to listener short stacks, and goodies in the mail. And we now have an option for patrons to pay for the entire year instead of monthly. And if you opt to do that, you'll get a 10% discount until August 1st. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Little incentive for you, honeys.
Worth it.
Okay, let's get started with episode 6. So what are we covering?
I have the first segment, and it's a Lost Love segment, and it is Delia Fazzani Goldie.
The best name ever.
Truly.
It's a great name. And then I have a wanted segment, but I feel like wanted segments should just be called Dick Bitch segments now. Because they always are. And
Yep.
it's about Jim Burnside, a true DB.
Oh, the
Ugh,
worst.
the worst.
The worst. And then I have a nice Lost Loves to wrap it up with about Jeff Fisher looking for someone special to him from his childhood.
That's a sweet one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Okay, here we come, Delia.
All right. So the first Lost Love of our Double the Love episode is the story of Delia Fazzani Goldie. Stack begins on a chilly spring evening in 1964. Delia Fazzani sat in her favorite London pub waiting for her boyfriend. Stack says that even though Delia was only 18, her life was at a crossroads. She was 3 months pregnant and felt that her boyfriend was the only person she could turn to. In the reenactment, Delia tells her boyfriend, who is wearing the squeakiest fake leather jacket I've ever heard.
That's when you know, honey, when it's squeaky.
Yeah, super authentic.
The mic guys are probably like, okay, thanks, wardrobe. Thanks so much.
Thanks for that vinyl garbage jacket. Thank you. Delia tells her boyfriend that she is pregnant. He tells her that he, quote, won't have it. And if she has the baby, he'll tell all of his friends to say that she's been with them.
Disgusting.
DB.
Yeah, aside from the fact that this guy sucks, the reenactor looks ridiculous.
Oh,
I guess they were going for like a Beatles look with his haircut, but he looks like a circumcised penis. Yeah, so essentially he's a dickhead, and that works for me. So Delia is interviewed, and she says that she was devastated. She said she wanted to marry him, that she loved him, but that he just didn't want the responsibility of it. She says it was just the way they did things then. They just left the responsibility with the girl. And I have to say, thank goodness we've evolved past that, because those were really dark times, you guys.
yeah, we never have to deal with that again.
So Delia says that her biggest fear was to tell her father that she was pregnant. She says she didn't know what was going to happen and was worried that he was going to kill her on the spot.
Yeah, this episode's just full of dick bitches in so many ways.
Yes.
Oh.
Stack says that Delia's father was an Italian immigrant who ran a highly successful restaurant in London. He was a strict Roman Catholic who ruled his business and his family with an iron hand. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Hard pass on that. Thanks so much. Delia says that he was the sort of man who always had a short fuse. Read, abusive.
Yes.
Everybody was frightened of him, and she was absolutely petrified to tell him. Stack says that for 7 agonizing months, Delia hid her pregnancy with corsets and loose clothes.
Can you imagine?
No. 7 months! Finally, when she couldn't hide it anymore, she begged her friend to tell her parents. So there's a reenactment. So I guess Delia's friend told her parents, and we see the aftermath in the reenactment. Delia's father runs up the stairs into her room and calls her a slut.
Yeah, I hated him so much.
Dad's mad.
Dad's mad.
Dad's real mad.
He calls her common and says that she disgusts him.
Yeah.
A reminder, this is in England and he's Italian, so we're getting lots of accents here too. And
Oh, for sure.
And common must be a bad thing there.
Yes, terribly, terribly common. He demands to know who got her pregnant, and Delia says that she isn't going to tell him. So that's, admirable, I guess.
But she's protecting her dick bitch
I know.
boyfriend,
Yeah.
ex-boyfriend.
Who
Well, I
doesn't
think
deserve
maybe
any
she was
protection?
worried that if she called this boy or guy out, that her father would go to him and that he would then tell her father that she had actually slept with a lot of
Sad.
people.
Oh my gosh.
And what's worse than having a slut for a daughter, but a pregnant slut for a daughter that sleeps with a lot of people instead of one person who got her pregnant?
Ugh, I hate him.
Her father says that she has done the worst thing possible. He tells her to tell no one and he'll take care of the problem. And I'm assuming the problem he's talking about is access to easy and cheap birth control.
Right.
No, of course not. So Delia's mother, a reasonable and kind human being, asks him if they can keep the baby. And Delia's father says that he'd rather jump off a bridge than take care of the baby.
I wish
And
you would.
I wish he would.
Yeah,
I
we'd all
wish he
feel
would have.
better.
Yes, I wish he would have jumped off the bridge. And then Delia and her mother could have raised that sweet little girl all by themselves. And then he says the weirdest thing, quote, "I don't even want to smell it."
Yes.
No.
It is such a weird statement that either the reenactor was truly feeling themselves or that's like what he must have said.
Oh, that's true.
So either way,
Of all the 5 senses to pick,
yeah.
that's the
I
one.
don't even want to smell
Don't even
it.
want to smell it.
It's disgusting. So Delia says that after that day, nothing was discussed with her. So she says that her dad was disgusted with her mother
Yes.
as to what to do with her. So like the mother was like, hey, we can solve this problem. We don't have to get rid of this. We don't have to send her away.
Yeah.
And that Delia's father was just absolutely not. She's disgusting and she has to get out of the house.
He was disgusted by her being accepting of the situation.
Exactly.
He's disgusted by all the women in his life.
He hates a vagina. Delia says that about a week later, her dad came home and announced that she was going to, quote, this place, wherever it was. The reenactment dad tells Delia that they're going to tell their friends that she went to the country for a few months to spend time with her friend Iris.
I know. And I feel like with those situations, like when that happens, everybody fucking knows what's happening anyway. Like, what is the point? You are telling the whole town what's happening.
Yeah, sorry, especially because it happens all of the time in
Yes.
super religious fucking families
Yeah.
where no one practices birth control. Oh, how does everyone have the same friend named Iris in the country? What are the odds?
Yeah.
As she's hugging her goodbye, her mother tells her that she didn't want to do this, and Delia tells her that she knows.
Just no control. No control of the
No,
situation.
none. Delia says that she wanted to keep her baby. Even though her father was sending her away, she thought that maybe once she had the baby, he would feel different. Stack tells us that Delia's father banished her to the Loretto convent, which I forgot to look up Loretto, but we've covered the Loretto chapel.
Yeah.
Different ones, though, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But Catholic, so it must be, Loretto must be something, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder
it's
what
probably a common name.
So this place was located 30 miles north of London. The convent served as a home for unwed mothers and facilitated adoptions as well. Delia says that she couldn't believe her father had just abandoned her there. She says, quote, "You know, you cringe at taking your dog to the pound because you don't want to leave him there, and yet he just easily took me there and left me." She says that in her eyes, it was like a prison. You were there for a certain amount of time, and you couldn't go until that time had been completed. Stack says all of the expectant mothers were assigned chores. Those closest to term were given the most strenuous work because the nuns believed it helped the girls deliver on time.
Yeah, I was actually hopeful that, like, oh, well, maybe she'll be, like, nurtured while she's here. No. Abusive.
It's funny that you should say that. Delia says that they're doing a job, that you're there to have your baby, and then goodbye, and then the next one comes in. And this actually reminded me of the movie The Magdalene Sisters. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Eliza, I feel like you would love it. It's based on what happened in Ireland at the homes, at the asylums for young women and unwed mothers.
Oh.
The movie follows like 4 women specifically, and their parents have left them at the Magdalene Asylum because they're considered fallen women. But so it follows these 4 girls. They're teenage girls. One girl was raped by her cousin, so it's her fault. Another girl is really beautiful and flirtatious, so she's committed. Another one is an unmarried mother. And then the last girl is intellectually disabled and pregnant, and you find out who the father is, and it's super, super fucked. The film follows these 4 girls, and basically they work in laundries. That's what the nuns would have them do. They would create these laundries. So they're burned with chemicals, and it's based on real events. It's what these asylums for women, young women and unwed mothers used to do. And it's really, really good. I think it's from like 2002 or something, but
okay.
I can't recommend it enough. It's amazing. But anyway, so on November 2nd, 1964, Delia gave birth to a daughter, and she named her Michelle. Delia was only allowed to see the baby 4 times a day, and only for a half hour. Delia says that they didn't like the mothers to see their babies more than feeding times and changing times because the more the women saw their babies, the more likely they were to bond with it. Like,
You know what else was
Literal
annoying?
science.
That reenactment of feeding time, she was using a fucking bottle. I was like,
Oh, they would be
definitely
using
didn't
a
give
bottle
them half
then.
hours to use a bottle, did they?
If
If they had to see them for feeding, I don't think it would have been bottle feeding. I don't know why.
Yeah, it would. They would
Then
not
why
have
would the
had them
mothers need
nurse
to
them.
do it?
They probably didn't have enough nuns to do it, but they probably wouldn't have had them breastfeed then. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
think.
I don't think so. Because that would create more of a bonding experience, I would think. But I don't know. I don't know what Catholics...
I
don't know what
assumed
nuns
they
were like back
used
then.
them for what they needed them for, and they needed them for feeding.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That's true.
But it was like fairly uncommon to nurse even
Yeah.
in the 80s.
Starting in the 1950s was when people moved away from nursing and like
Yeah.
all that twilight birthing and stuff. So I don't know.
My grandmother still thinks it's weird that me and my cousins nursed our babies. She's like, every time a new one has a baby, she's like, I guess they're going to nurse. It's really, I guess they're going to do that. It's so weird.
Wow. So Delia says that the nuns thought that if the women didn't get to see their babies, that they would just hand them over as if nothing had happened. But Delia says that the bond is still there automatically. And she's right. It doesn't matter if you bottle feed or breastfeed. If you only see your child an hour a day, you're still bonded to that child.
And it's like another form of torture.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, God, the emotional abuse is disgusting.
And the torture for these babies. Like, what's happening to these babies when they're not being held by their mothers? They're probably in a crib, not attaching
Not being
to
held at
anyone.
all.
That's what I was thinking too. If the feeding is scheduled and like the holding is scheduled, they're probably just not being
Totally.
cared for. In between.
Yeah, that's also just not how babies work.
no.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Totally. Stack says that when Michelle was 4 weeks old, Delia's parents visited the convent. Delia was hoping that her father would allow her to come home with the baby and raise it. Delia says that she was hoping that her dad would pick the baby up, but he just walked away, and she knew that was it. There was no way that she was going to change his mind.
And oh my gosh, the reenactment of her mother getting to see the baby is so sad. She's so happy.
I know. 6 weeks after Michelle was born, a nun tells Delia that they have found a couple to adopt Michelle. She says she can't tell Delia anything except that they're American and that they have, quote, your coloring.
Yes, so they maybe had an Italian heritage as well.
Mm-hmm. They had brown hair.
Yeah. And olive skin.
She also told Delia that father was in the Air Force and he was a pilot stationed in Northampton. She then has Delia sign some papers without explaining to her anything that they say. 2 weeks later, at the Westminster offices of the Catholic Children's Society, Delia was allowed a final visit with Michelle. This one was a heartbreaker, this reenactment. Stack says that when Delia was alone, she slipped a note into Michelle's blanket. The note begged Delia's adoptive parents to tell Michelle that Delia had loved her and had given her up unwillingly. Delia says that you only have about 30 minutes before you have to give your baby up in that situation. So what you try to do is try to look at her face, to burn the impression into your mind, because you get that feeling that you're going to forget the face.
It's so sad.
It's heartbreaking. She says, so you feel the shawl, and maybe because it's wool, but you're feeling her body because that's the last time that you're going to see her. And I think that Delia is doing an incredible job of describing the agony of this situation. She's communicating it so well that who would not have empathy for her? Who would not have sympathy for her? Delia says the adoption person came and took Michelle from Delia and then locked the door behind her, which is also agonizing. And I guess that was so Delia couldn't run out and make a scene. I don't know.
And clearly they've
had that happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Delia says, and that was it. That was the last time I saw her. I can't explain it. 1 minute I had a baby, and the next minute she was gone.
Gosh.
Stack says that Delia and her parents never spoke of the adoption again.
This is literally Handmaid's Tale. Like, in a horrible way. They use them for a while, like Karlin was saying, to actually nurse them, and then they just take them away.
Yeah. And then to go home and have your dad
never speak of it.
Never speak of it again. No one is allowed to acknowledge it.
Deepening your trauma because you are not allowed to work through it at all.
No, of course not. So Stack says Delia married twice, but had no other children. In 1977, Delia's father died, and she began to search for Michelle. But Delia's mother, Rosalinda, honored her father's wish that the details of the adoption be kept secret.
Which,
my
what
gosh.
is the fear of this man when she is a full-blown adult? Like, she was an adult when she had the baby. This is way later.
That is some abusive mental shit right there. That this woman is still afraid of her husband
Beyond
even
the
after
grave.
he's dead.
Yeah.
Delia's father dies in 1977. 1991. This is like 15 years. Rosalinda wouldn't talk about who adopted her granddaughter.
It's insane.
Rosalinda was hospitalized in 1991 with a terminal illness. A family friend named Sonia Filkins urged Rosalinda to tell Delia everything she knew about Michelle and the adoption. So, oh my God, all of this makes me so angry. Rosalinda told Delia that the name of the people who adopted Michelle was Walters. 2 weeks later, Rosalinda Fazzani died. Delia says that she can honestly say that not one day has passed, not one solitary day where she hasn't thought about her or thought about what she might be doing. She says that she's there all of the time and that she's got to find her. Stack says that 2 photos were all that Delia had to remember Michelle, and she never stopped trying to locate her. Finally, after 15 years of frustrated research, Delia's efforts began to pay off. Stack is in the call center, and he tells us that last July, Delia learned that Michelle had been named Laura. An adoption official agreed to send a letter to Laura that Delia had written. In the brief note, Delia said that she would soon appear on Unsolved Mysteries and asked her daughter to view the broadcast. And then they cut to video footage of Laura watching the segment with her adoptive mom on August 8th, 1992. Stack says in New York Mills, New York, on the evening the program was aired, Delia's daughter, Laura Franklin, experienced firsthand the heartbreaking events that led to her being given up for adoption. Laura Franklin is interviewed, and she says it was pretty touching to know that Delia had looked so hard to try to find her.
Yeah.
Stack says that after the broadcast, Laura contacted the telecenter and asked to be put in touch with Delia. On September 19th, 1992, Laura, her husband, her two children, and her closest friends assembled at the Syracuse National Airport to greet Delia. And it is so nice.
It's too nice.
They hug and they're crying. And Delia says that Laura was everything and more than she expected. Delia says that she can't replace Laura's mother, but she would like to be pretty close. Stack says that the September reunion is only a beginning. At Christmas, Laura and her family are planning to travel to England, where they will spend time with Delia and the many relatives looking forward to meeting them for the first time. So I couldn't find a lot, and the news that I have is sad.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Laura Franklin passed away on June 14th, 2019.
Oh, no.
I think that she may have had ovarian cancer, and she was only 54 years old.
Oh, no.
Interestingly, Delia was not mentioned in Laura's obituary as a family member.
Wow.
And Laura has 4 children. I found them, and they all seem very happy. Her one son became the police captain of New York Wells at the age of 30. And that was a role that his father had before his father passed away in 2017 at the age of 57.
Oh, my gosh.
Something of note was that none of the children had Delia or her husband Ian as a friend on Facebook.
Were they on, and they are on Facebook?
Yes.
Oh, no.
I don't know. The last posting from Delia on Facebook is in 2018, so I don't know if she is still with us, but she is a animal rights activist and seems like a wonderful woman. Laura's adoptive mother, Marlis Powers, is alive and runs a blog for caretakers who are caretakers of their family members. And Laura's adoptive father, Charlie Powers, just passed away in January of 2021, and Marlis was his caretaker as he had dementia. And that's pretty much all I could find. But yeah, that's it. They got, it was a happy ending. And
At least for the segment, and then...
At least for the segment. And, I don't know. I mean, maybe it seems like Delia really wanted Laura to play the role of her daughter again. And maybe Laura just wasn't in a place where she felt like she could do that, I mean, and you see that a lot with these, not just our Lost Love segments, but when children are reunited with their biological parents, sometimes everybody's expectation isn't the same.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
And after the initial high of finding the parent or the child, sort of the day-to-day reality of real life kicks in.
Yeah.
And, maybe that person isn't exactly who you want that person to be. So
Yeah. Well, and also it's hard to be an adult child. Like, she already
Yeah.
had parents that she was an adult child of. And so then to also play that role for someone who's a stranger
yeah,
is...
absolutely.
I could see that being really difficult. Oh,
Yeah.
if you can hear that knocking, it's just my child knocking on the door.
Aw.
Did they also say, where did they live?
Laura was in New York Wells, New York, and Delia lived in Kent.
Yeah, so, I mean, it would be very hard to have a relationship that way.
Yeah. And this is like before Facebook and stuff. But I would think if there was a fully formed relationship that had continued over the decades, that they would at least be Facebook friends, because I'm Facebook friends with people that I met at a party once.
Yeah.
So. But yeah,
Great job.
thanks. True story, I hate my hair. I have the thinnest, flattest, most baby fine hair that you have ever seen. I also have terrible skin allergies to hair products, and that leaves my scalp super itchy and unhappy. I have tried zillions of products with zero success, but I have recently found products that actually do what they say they're going to do. I know, it's shocking. I've started using Gemist. I took their quick 2-minute quiz, and their fancy schmancy algorithm matched me with the best shampoo and conditioner and a scalp balancing bar. I have to admit, I had no idea what a scalp balancing bar was, but I went for it anyway. It removed buildup and soothed the insane itchiness that I get from using hair care products. The shampoo gave my hair actual volume. Crazy, right? And the conditioner left my hair shiny and really soft and not like weighted down and gross. Also, the products smell really good. They put a lot of deliciousness into that scent. I also love the fact that Gemist is owned by a woman. You gotta support the ladies. Most awesome is that if you subscribe, you get 20% off. Right now, our listeners can give Gemist a try and get 20% off their shampoo and conditioner Smart subscription. Smart subscribers already save 20% on each order, so this is an amazing deal. Do the math. And with free 2-day shipping, you can have it literally before this weekend. Just visit Gemist.com and get your personalized recommendation and enter Mysteries at checkout for 20% off of your subscription and free 2-day shipping. That's Gemist.com, GEMMIST.com, and enter code MYSTERIES, MYSTERIES, at checkout to get the best hair of your life.
So this is a wanted segment about Jim Burnside.
Ugh.
I know, and as we were saying recently, I don't know when I said that, so I might be saying it out of order, but the wanted segments should just be called Dick Bitch segments.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you said it in the intro, and it still rings true.
Yes, and it's just sad because it's like we should be saying the victim's name, and
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Mixed feels. When Annette Schappacher was 16, her family moved from Cincinnati, Ohio to Manatee County, Florida. Because she was shy, Annette had a hard time at her new school, and her mom, Jean Schappacher, who is interviewed all throughout the segment, says Annette had a hard time because there were already cliques there, and she missed her own friends in Ohio, and so she ended up dropping out to become a cashier at their local grocery store. Stack says, here, Annette finally made a friend, the butcher, Jim Burnside, 28 years her senior.
Boo.
I know, and like in the reenactment, he looks like a honey.
Yeah.
He looks like he's just wearing that little white cap, and he just seems so nice.
Your friendly neighborhood butcher, you know?
Yes. I've dated the butcher before. And mine was nice. In the reenactment, he leans over the meat counter and is asking her if she has a boyfriend. And she's like, no. And he's like, really? Someone as pretty as you doesn't have a boyfriend? And then he's like, well, why don't you join me for dinner tomorrow night? I think he's like on my friend's boat or something like that. Like, of course, it just sounds fancy and nice. And so Jean says that Annette was only 17 and Jim was almost as old as her dad. So apparently Annette told her parents about this relationship. I think she was like totally open about it. Because Jean says, like, we hoped she'd fall in love with someone her own age, but because she was so much in love with him, we agreed to meet him. So it was very much like, meet my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Jean tells us that she didn't like Jim from the first time she met him, and there was just something about him that she wasn't sure how to put into words, but she just didn't feel comfortable with him at all.
No good.
So we've told you guys before, and we'll say it again, listen to your gut instincts, because they are going to be correct.
Yeah.
So Annette was so much in love with Jim that her parents allowed them to date, which is just wild to me. In 1981, Annette and Jim got married. She was 18 and he was 46.
Oh my God.
And Stack says it was the beginning of 6 years of torment for Annette. So then Stack, ascending a staircase, tells us that, quote, the sobering fact is that here in the United States, wife beating accounts for more significant injuries than rape, car accidents, and muggings combined.
Oh, gross.
Which, like, the term wife beating is definitely playing down a much bigger problem, I feel like.
It's just like an antiquated way, because it isn't, it's partner abuse, right? It isn't
Exactly.
just wives.
Yes. He says that Annette, like millions of women, endured the private torment of a home that was a living hell of physical and emotional abuse. He says she got trapped like so many women do in keeping up the facade of a happy marriage to cover up an escalating cycle of violence. And they're like showing happy family photos and all this stuff, and it's just so sad.
Yeah.
When you look back on those types of things and know that it was not like that.
Yeah.
Within a month of marrying Annette, Jim started drinking, which I was like, I'm sure he was a drinker before this. And Annette started seeing a scary side of him that she hadn't seen before. Jean says she became afraid of Jim almost immediately, which is just so sad. Jean says she was scared because Jim was jealous of Annette, and when he was drinking, he was violent, and he would tell Annette all the time that she would never ever leave him. Apparently, Jim told Annette right from the start of their marriage that he would kill her if she tried to leave him. Like,
oh my God.
From the get-go.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I don't think this marriage was ever actually happy.
Mm.
They do a reenactment, and Jim is like at home smoking a cigarette. He answers the phone, and it's Annette. And he asks her where she is, and she says it's not important. She just wants to let him know she's all right. Stack says that just before her first wedding anniversary, Annette had checked into a local shelter for battered women. So in the reenactment, she's saying she can't come back, and she's saying, and he's telling her she has to come back now or he'll get even with her. Jean says he told her repeatedly that if he couldn't find her, she would suffer. He would tell her that he would kill her family. And so when he started saying that kind of stuff, like threatening other people in her life, is when she agreed to come home because I know, it is horrible. She had made this decision to find safety for herself, and then he found a way to manipulate her again.
Oh my God.
Jean says that she told Annette not to worry about them. She said if anything happened to them, it would be God's will, and things happen for a reason, which is just horrible.
Yeah.
Like, how can you tell her, oh, don't worry about it in case he kills us? Oh my God. It's just horrible. She told Annette that she should not go back to him. And in her interview, she says, I would rather be dead than to have you live a life like this. So in the reenactment, Annette comes back to Jim's house, and he greets her at the door with flowers. He's calling her honey. And they basically go back to putting on this show of this happy marriage. But of course it was not. Over the next 2 years, they ended up having 2 daughters. Again, just looping her in more and more. And for a while after the daughters, things seemed to get a little better. Of course, every woman has that experience where they're like, oh, now that there's other people in this family, like, it's going to be fine. And so Annette wanted to take a job as a receptionist at a local car dealership, and Jim had told her that she could. So Jean explains to us that everyone was totally shocked that he would let her get a job because he'd always been so possessive and jealous, and come to find out the reason he let her get a job was because he had recently lost his job.
Okay.
When it was convenient for him.
That makes sense. Yep.
He let her get a job because he probably took her paycheck the minute she got home.
Exactly.
Yep. Jean tells us that Annette loved her job. She was very happy. Everyone there loved her. She just absolutely loved being there. And when you think about it, it's the only place she is free from him. So of course
she loved
even
it.
if it was a shitty job, she probably fucking loved it.
Yeah.
So Stack says that one of Annette's coworkers was a salesman, quote, who we will call Dave. So Dave appears in silhouette, but Dave's name is Dave, so I don't know why Stack said that. His name was David.
What?
I know. It was kind of silly. Like, that's his name.
Okay.
It's a double fake out. His name's actually Dave.
Weird.
Extra sneaky Stack. So Dave appears in silhouette, and he says that Annette had asked him advice about buying a car. She explained that she wanted a little more freedom, and Jim always dropped her off and picked her up from work, so literally the only time she had, as I said, to be free was at work. And Dave says that, he helps her buy this car. She takes the car home, and in just a few days, Jim tried to wreck it.
Ugh.
So in the reenactment, he just starts pulling things out of the car engine. Like, he's literally got the hood open. He's just, like, yanking shit out. He starts smashing the lights with a crowbar. He's just tearing up this car.
He's insane.
Yeah.
He's insane.
He's like a wild animal.
Yes, and her and the little kids are inside.
I know. It's heartbreaking.
So the daughter runs out, and she's like, what's wrong? And Annette's like, nothing, it's okay. Like, literally pretending nothing is happening, which is also a form of trauma for this child.
Yes, yeah.
And then Jim bursts in the house, and he's yelling, and he's pushing Annette, and he's telling her if she ever tries to leave, he'll kill her and the whole family. And Jean says that their daughter Stacy was only 5 at the time, and she looked up at him and said, Daddy, you wouldn't kill me. And he looked her right in the face and said, yes, I would kill you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like, we hear these dick bitches all the time that somehow are still, like, a nice dad to their kids.
Yes.
And, like, it's a lie behind the scenes. But this guy was just, like, a dick bitch to everyone.
Horrendous.
Oh my God. Monster.
Total monster. So Jean says Annette would tell her the way she was being treated. And she said, quote, and all mothers, you know, if your kid's happy, you're happy. And if they're sad, you're sad. And it was just tearing me up to see what she was going through. And so at this point, I'm like, of course, not blaming the parents, but I'm kind of like, what are you guys doing? Like, is anybody saying anything to anyone?
Yeah.
So Annette waited until Jim was at work the next day and called the police to escort her and her daughters to safety, which I was like, whoa, good job. Like, amazing.
I guess all it took was a direct threat in your daughter's face to murder her at the age of 5 years old.
Yeah, maybe that was that, like, straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Jean says she'd made up her mind she couldn't stay another day, and if he killed her, then he's going to have to kill her because she couldn't live this way anymore. So she just kind of, like, took that chance, like, maybe he's going to come find me and kill me, but I need to try to get away.
Yeah.
By the time Jim came home, Annette would be on a plane to Ohio, taking her daughters to stay with relatives. 5 days later, she secretly came back to Florida and her job.
No. I wish she would have stayed in Ohio. I
don't know what she was thinking. She must have just been like, I love this job and I can't leave it. I don't know. I don't understand. So Jean explains that Jim didn't know where Annette was, and in the meantime, he had been calling her and her husband, Annette's parents, threatening them this whole time. And he keeps telling them the divorce is never going to be final. And eventually Jim realized that Annette was back in town, because of course he did. And he started stalking her, basically. He spotted her one day near the car dealership where she worked. Jean says that they couldn't get help because the sheriff's department said they couldn't just arrest him. He had to do something first.
Oh, my God.
That makes a lot of sense.
There we go. They were telling the police.
Yeah.
And nothing was happening, and we hear this all the time.
Yeah, I know.
So Detective Ned Foy of the Manatee County, Florida Sheriff's Office says that unless you have someone guarding you 24 hours a day, the chances of someone getting to you, it's stalking, they're going to get to you. And that's what he did. He stalked her.
Okay. Oh, God.
I know. Like,
It's crazy.
this all could have been prevented.
Yeah.
The laws have changed since then, correct? Though you can be arrested for stalking, but it does still take a lot of evidence to prove it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah.
There are definitely stalking laws now that didn't exist then. February 17th, 1988, 3 days before she was supposed to be in court for her divorce hearing, Annette met her coworker Dave for lunch at noon. Dave says she was smiling and happy when she got in the car with him, and then suddenly her face turned to fear. So in the reenactment, Jim jumps out of his truck and runs up to their car window. Annette is sitting in the passenger seat, and he takes out a rifle and smashes the window with the butt of the rifle. Like you said, like an animal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Dave jumps out of the car because he's like, he's going to kill Annette. Like, I have to do something. So Dave says, quote, he looked at me as if he was about to enjoy a large steak.
Gross.
Blah.
Blah.
Which in the UM reenactment, that's not what he looked like.
No, he did not look like that.
Yeah, it would have been creepier if they had him look like that.
Yeah. He just looked nuts.
But that's a weird direction to give to an actor. And now for this, I want you to pretend it's a steak in front of you.
Right. But I think he was just saying he looked like he was about to enjoy.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to do this.
Yuck.
So then in the reenactment, Jim just aims the rifle at Dave and shoots.
Yeah.
And Dave says it was like slow motion. He watched the fire come out of the gun and then, quote, you could feel each one go in just like a hot poker. Oof. So UM doesn't say, but he was being shot in the stomach.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. According to an article with an interview with Dave, who I said his name was Dave. Dave Otenai. He said that he actually begged Jim not to do it and to think about it. And so it definitely wasn't as fast as it was depicted in UM. There was definitely like some bargaining for his life there. Dave gets shot in the stomach, and this is also not from UM, but he said, picked me up off my feet, blew me across the yard, and dumped me into the bushes, he recalls.
Wow.
So Annette obviously is completely terrified. She jumps out of the car and runs away screaming. Jim sees this, drops the gun, and pulls out a large knife.
A knife!
Yeah.
I was like, my mouth was just hanging open during this whole reenactment. Like,
It was
what?
too easy to shoot her. He had to physically attack and mutilate her body.
Yes. In a more animalistic way. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Disgusting.
So he chases her with this 10-inch butcher knife and stabs her 15 times.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So yeah, so then as I said, Dave was carried to the ambulance, and as he's being taken away, he sees Annette's body in the road.
Just so sad.
So Jim just escapes on foot in broad daylight. Like this whole reenactment, I'm like, this is the middle of the day.
I know.
He's just shot a man with a rifle, stabbed one 15 times with a butcher knife in the middle, open area, and then just walks away. Apparently, after the murder, he bought a bicycle and Camp Army fatigues, took $500 out of an ATM, and disappeared. Annette was buried in a Manatee County cemetery. Stack tells us that 2.5 years after her death, a stranger appeared at her grave. When a groundskeeper approached him, the man quickly walked away. The groundskeeper later identified the man as Jim Burnside. So that must have been like a I need to tell somebody about this type of sighting, you know? Because, like, yeah, you see a man in a grave.
Why would
there
you
must have been
say
something about it that was, like,
Right.
I see.
Dave says that what he wants to see is Jim Burnside off the streets. Quote, not because of what he has done to me, mostly of what he has done to his own children and his wife. Dave says if he's not off the streets, he will do it again. And then he's just such a honey. He says, the world will never get over Annette's death. There's a person that had so much to give. And it's just like, oh, he like thinks the world of her. Jean says she knew in her heart that she was not going to make it. I knew in my heart that she was not going to make it. And I just hope and pray that somebody spots him. We will never feel safe until we know Jim has been caught.
The terror and the helplessness of those parents. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine. You're watching, you know that this man is going to murder your daughter.
Yes.
And what can you do about it? And then the hope of her going to Ohio and finally leaving and then making this tremendously strange decision to come back and go right back to her job and just sort of pick up where she left off just without this person. I can't imagine what her parents went through. I can't imagine it.
No, it's
I know.
awful.
Yeah, like you said, helpless. And like at that point, he had, like, they knew he would kill her.
Yeah.
He had threatened to kill them. He had threatened to kill the kids. Like, how can this family ever feel safe?
And the fear, too, of him coming after them, because he's clearly so brazen. He'll just try to kill 2 people in broad daylight
Yes.
with a gun and a knife.
And a knife. Yes.
So when he makes those threats, he isn't, because I think that sometimes abusers use that as a manipulation tactic, but they don't have any intention of attacking family members because essentially they're cowards. But the difference is this man clearly would have attacked anyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
He did not care.
No.
Yeah. And he didn't know anything about Dave. Like, he
No.
knew Dave worked there. That's it.
He probably thought that Dave was sleeping with his wife.
Yeah.
And that was enough for him.
Yeah. This is Jean again. Quote, "It's bad enough knowing that Annette had to die, but to know that he is still out there, it's just horrible. We just want him caught. We want to be able to close it out and go on with our life." And another article I found from May of 1988 said that Annette's girls, Tara, I don't know how old Tara was, I forgot to put it in, and Stacy, 6, were living with their grandparents, Roy and Jean, and they still hadn't accepted their mom's death, so this is from 88. Quote, "Tara still asks for her mommy every day," said Jean. "There probably isn't a day that goes by that she doesn't say, 'I want my mommy.'"
Oh my God. So that means Tara was younger than Stacy, and Stacy was only 6, so that puts Tara probably at like 3 or 4.
That makes me sick to my stomach.
Oh my God. It's so upsetting.
Yeah. Jean says, "I try to explain to her that her mom is dead and she isn't coming back. She started to say, 'From now on, I want Grandpa to be my daddy and Grandma to be my mommy.'" I know. So heartbreaking. So then there's an update on UM, and it says, "The night this story aired, 2 viewers contacted our telecenter to report that Jim Burnside was living in Shelby County, Alabama, under the assumed name Al Wilson. Mary Collum, who they identify as tipster, says, 'When I saw his actual picture, I just looked at my husband and I pointed and I'm going, tell me my eyes aren't deceiving me, you know? That is Al.' And he goes, 'Yes, that is Al.'" Like, I can't imagine that weird sensation.
I know. And we don't often get to hear from the tipsters.
No.
Yes,
Just
totally.
the tipsters. Just the tip.
Lloyd Breezeal, the other tipster, who very much sounded like maybe the adult version of the Dad's Mad Kid.
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was...
He had a very,
something.
very different voice.
Yeah.
Yes. Plus, his S's whistled, and he had a Southern accent. So it was just
gopher, a Southern
delightful.
gopher. We love
A
it.
Southern gopher.
So he says that the first thing he thought of was to call up the authorities and get the guy off the street. Stack tells us that Jim was a carpenter at a flea market outside of Chelsea, Alabama. Sheriff James Jones of Shelby County, Alabama, says they'd gotten a call from the FBI office in Birmingham stating that they thought Jim Burnside would likely be at a specific flea market in Shelby County. So I don't know how they got that. I guess just the tipsters said he was around there. Stack says the morning after the broadcast, FBI agents and sheriff's deputies checked out the flea market. Burnside was working on building something, which I guess he was like repairing a roof, and they realized they saw him, so they went towards his truck. As the FBI agents ran after him, he pulled out a gun and pointed it at the officers. So in the reenactment, they basically have a shootout with him in his truck, and Burnside is hit twice. Once was in the hand and once was something else. Obviously, they weren't trying to kill him. They were just trying to stop him. So they were able to place him under arrest and take him to the hospital. Sheriff James Jones says from what they can determine from talking to his coworkers, he had made a statement Thursday morning because he'd seen the UM episode and it had him in it. So he had seen that Wednesday night. UM didn't include what that was, but I found an article with an interview from the coworker, and he had just told the coworker, "There may be some trouble today."
Yes. Oh, that's an understatement, buddy.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
So some more details not from UM. As we know, Burnside was using the name Al Williams. His coworker Lawrence Trott said he'd been living in a trailer at the flea market for 2 months and just did odd jobs there. Apparently, Burnside was also on America's Most Wanted in 1988, which was 5 months after he killed Annette. David Bristow, a spokesman for the Manatee County Sheriff's Department, said, quote, "A lot of credit goes to Unsolved Mysteries. If we hadn't gotten him from Unsolved Mysteries, I don't know if we would have."
Cool.
Rick Schaubacher, Annette's brother, said when Jean called him to tell him the news, quote, "She was happy, teary-eyed, and it was really good to see that," he said. "When I went to talk to her, she was breathless, trying to speak." And Rick also talked about the children after Burnside's arrest. Quote, "Stacy very much wants to see her dad," David Schaubacher said Thursday night. "She was really happy he got caught, but at the same time she was saying to Mom, they won't kill him, will they?"
Oh, God.
So he gets sentenced to prison with no possibility of parole. Oh, this is just about the trial. So from an article just after the conviction, which were federal firearms charges for pointing the gun at the officers.
Okay.
The jury panel of 3 women and 9 men deliberated less than 1 hour before convicting him for pointing his gun at the FBI agent. Jean Schotbacher said it was a relief and that Annette's two daughters were elated by the news. So I'm not sure how much time that was in between the arrest and the trial, but obviously these girls had kind of come around a bit. Quote, "They're happy, yes they are," Schotbacher said. "I was afraid he was making up a sob story." So Burnside's defense had tried to say that he was going to shoot himself to avoid capture. But the FBI agents testified and were like, he was full on, like, ready for firefight. Like, he was, no.
Yeah, because your whole body language also shows, like, you're going to shoot someone that's not yourself.
Yes.
It's not even just about how the gun is pointing.
Yeah, like, give me a
accidentally.
And Jean said, "I would have thought if he was going to kill himself, he was going to do it right after he killed Annette, not wait." And I was like, yes, totally. So, and then Burnside also had told the FBI that he did not remember the last time he'd seen his wife.
Oh, really?
gross.
He couldn't remember? Okay.
Yeah, just slipped his mind. The jury found Burnside guilty of assaulting a federal officer and using a firearm during a felony. He had already pled guilty to possession of a firearm by a convicted felon fleeing justice. The family had mixed feelings about the conviction. 9-year-old Stacy, for instance, this was from an article, wants her father to go to prison, but also hopes that he becomes a Christian.
Oh, gosh.
So Jean had said, "I guess she would like for her dad to know Jesus. Myself, I feel he deserves the death penalty."
Good for you, Jean.
I know, I loved that. Because
Jean's like, this kid's really sweet and I love her, but she's wrong.
totally.
This guy
I'm
needs
sure they're
to
like
go.
a fully Christian family, but she was like, we got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, she's like, he gots to go.
Yep. So she said, "It's still my hope that while he's waiting for the death penalty, he will repent for what he has done." She also added that Burnside's younger daughter, Tara, was 6 by then, didn't talk about him much. Schotbacher said, "The family goes to Annette's grave every year on the anniversary of the killing, and this year would be different." She also said that they would relax some of the security precautions they had taken for the children's sake after Annette was murdered.
Right. I didn't even think about that. They were probably living in fear that he was going to come back for them.
Yes, and what reason would they have to... why would they not think he was going to come kill them?
Yeah.
Right.
So she said the girls had been instructed to run away and call 911 if they ever saw their father.
Yeah, but I don't think Stacy would have.
I know, I don't know.
I don't know if Stacy would have.
But even hearing that over and over is traumatizing for them, too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Jean said, "It feels better, but nothing is going to take away the pain. It still hasn't finished for me yet."
Oh.
So after his conviction, Burnside was set to be extradited back to Bradenton, which is in Florida, where he would face charges for murdering Annette and attempting to murder Dave. Burnside was, of course, convicted of assaulting a federal officer. Oh yeah, so this one Sitcoms Online user had all this extra info that seemed to be pulled straight from articles. So one Sitcoms Online user said the prosecutors were seeking the death penalty, but right before his trial was to begin, he was offered a plea deal. He pled no contest to first-degree murder and first-degree attempted murder and was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Burnside will be eligible for parole in the year 2022 when he will be 85 years old. So that's gross. That's next year.
Oh, God.
I don't think, he shouldn't be, I don't care if he's 105, he shouldn't be eligible for parole, in my opinion.
Well, we don't have to worry because the dick bitch died in jail.
Yay!
November 27th, 2015.
I love a happy ending.
Yeah, we love that. The same Sitcoms Online user said, "I also found out that in January of 1988 that Jim Burnside had been arrested for violating the no contact order between him and Annette that had been granted in December of 87. He was arrested after being seen riding a bicycle through the parking lot of the dealership where she worked. He was arrested for violating the no contact order, but the charges were dropped just days before Annette was murdered."
Why?
I don't know. The state attorney's office claimed they did not have the money to prosecute such cases. Oh, so.
But also, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
you
matter.
find that fucking money because this is someone's life that. Ugh.
I know. Okay. There's a whole side story about Dave that has nothing to do with this, but I can't not tell it.
Tell it,
No
girls.
wonder you knew Dave's name so well.
Yes. Okay, so this is the coworker who was shot by Jim.
Yes. Let's call him Dave, and his name is
Let's
Dave.
call him Dave, even though his name is Dave. So a year after the shooting, Dave started carrying a gun. Understandable.
Sure.
Especially because Jim was still out there.
Yeah.
In 2007, Otenai was arrested for armed trespassing at a Home Depot.
Oh, no.
What?
So Otenai, Dave, was 63 at the time and was at a Home Depot trying to do a return for some plumbing supplies that he had bought that were worth less than $5.
Oh, my God.
And the cashier told him, we can only refund you about $1.
Oh, no.
So I am not sure of the details, but Dave
God.
must have gotten pretty mad.
Oh, my God.
Flash that gun.
He ends up asking for a manager.
Dave should have went by Karen.
Let's call him Karen.
Let's call him Karen.
From henceforth, he shall be called Karen. So he has to talk to a manager. The manager confirms we can only refund you $1. I'm sure this is like basic return policy.
Oh my
And
God.
also, I guarantee it's like a little bolt or nut or something. Like a
Yes.
little tiny part.
less
for the
than
sink.
$5.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing Dave put up a stink because he was then asked to leave several times, but would not leave.
Gross.
So they called 911 on him. And so the manager is telling them on 911, like, we have a customer who won't leave the store. And apparently you can hear Dave on the 911 tape say, I have a gun.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
So he never takes his gun out. He does not threaten anyone with
Yeah.
it. He just says, I have one.
You don't need to say that. Don't say that. It's $5. Don't say that.
So the manager is still on the phone with 911 and he's like, yeah, he just told me he has a gun. Like,
Oh, my God.
so, and then he's like, he's holding up our lines. We literally can't help anyone else because he won't get out of here.
Ugh.
So sheriff's deputies come to Home Depot. Customers are running from the store in a panic because he says he has a gun.
Oh, my God. Dave.
And the officer said when they got there, it was still in his waistband. Like, he never touched it.
Yeah.
And Otenai said that the reason he said he had a gun was because he knew they were on the phone with the police and he thought, like, I need to say this before someone comes. I don't know. He just thought it was, like, the safe thing to do to, like, announce it. But it, like, caused this whole panic.
Oh, my God.
And then he had also been telling them he's with the Palmetto Police Department because he was a civilian volunteer up until this arrest when he couldn't be anymore.
Please.
Oh, God, I hate that.
So, and the end of the article just said that he'd be facing 5 years probation if a jury convicted him. And I don't know if they did or not, but...
Dave,
what are you doing?
Don't say you have a gun.
Oh my God.
And Dave, now you're the bully. You got shot by a bully, and now you're bullying people.
That's
Yes.
not
Come on, Dave. Learn some life lessons, man. Be nice.
And, like, we know it's not about $4. It's about being told no.
Yes.
good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so other small details I can find about Burnside. A Sitcoms Online user was talking about why Jim was the way he was and, like, what had happened in his past that made him, quote, suddenly snap in middle age when he was a, quote, law-abiding citizen up until then. And another user, KADRMAS15.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one before?
Yeah, I think I referenced that person
Okay.
in one of my last segments.
They were pretty, I liked the way they wrote this. They said, well, I am not sure he was truly a law-abiding citizen before the murder. I mean, certainly he had never killed before, but it appears he had been in prison before. He, in fact, had escaped from Florida prisons twice in 1959 and, in fact, was convicted of felony theft on multiple occasions and had a criminal record going back to his early 20s.
Whoa.
Okay.
He also had a rather lengthy arrest record, mostly for misdemeanor charges such as drunk driving, public intoxication, domestic violence, and that type of thing.
Whoa.
So he's always been a real peach, I guess. Like,
Real honey.
come on, like, we could have guessed.
Yeah.
The user also said, and this is the part I'm talking about with all this info I couldn't find myself, but they said, in fact, when Jim Burnside was convicted in federal court in 1992 on 3 federal felonies, he was tried in the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Alabama in Birmingham in February of 1992. He was convicted of assaulting a federal officer and illegal use of firearm. He could have got up to 25 years in federal prison, but was sentenced to 7 years and 9 months in federal prison for those charges. On his way to sentencing hearing on on April 22nd, 1992, he was found to be in possession of escape tools, specifically a handcuff key under his tongue, and he was found to be in possession of pepper, wires, a narrow razor blade, and names of people, presumably friends and family, written on cigarette rolling paper. All of these things he had hidden in ballpoint pens.
Whoa. Wait a minute. I love the pepper. I love it. Were you going to blow that in someone's face?
For
Is
sure,
that how
right?
you were going to, right?
Oh, it's horrible.
You were going to use that pepper as a weapon.
And it's just in a ballpoint pen. Oh my God.
Man, that's how I used to hide my cheat notes. I would put them in a ballpoint pen. Yeah.
He comes in with like a giant pocket protector and he's got 7,000 pens. They're like, I guess he really likes writing. He was sentenced to 7 years, 9 months in prison on the charges he was previously convicted of and given a new charge, possessing escape tools.
Oh my gosh.
In July of 1992, he was convicted by a federal jury of those charges, and the jury deliberated a whopping 13 minutes to convict.
Oh, God.
He faced up to 5 years in federal prison for that conviction. He was given 5 years, but the sentence was run concurrent with the 7-year, 9-month sentence he had received earlier.
And that was after he was convicted for the murder, right?
That was just after the firearms thing.
Oh.
So then he's eventually convicted for the murder, which was life in prison, and then he fucking died there like he should. But
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Whoa.
I know. I was like, where did this person find all this? Like, I didn't find it, but
Oh, I love it.
pretty wild. So that's it.
Wow.
I'm the dick bitch.
What a story. That was amazing.
He's just one of the worst.
One of the worst.
It is truly, Eliza was talking last episode for the Stamper segment about how the scenes are becoming really, really, really upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
And the one with the daughter, I mean, it was, I mean, obviously, like, as I'm a mom of a kid that age, and you can't help but look at your kid and think, Jesus Christ, I can't imagine anyone screaming in my kid's face, let alone screaming that they were going to murder her, let alone it being a parent. It was so upsetting. It was so upsetting to me.
So upsetting.
Well, and I was going to say, it makes you wonder about the actor doing that reenactment, like, or the other abusers we've had. Do they know what they're going to be playing when they get hired? Do they know how, like, severe it's going to be? I wonder if anyone's ever, like, backed out, because these people aren't, like,
Especially
professional.
for kids,
I mean, they're
I feel
trying
like.
to be professional actors, probably, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Even that girl, the little girl's an actor, having to say, but you wouldn't kill me. Like,
Well, that's the thing about child actors is,
they're dead
obviously.
inside.
Well, no, it's that the parents are so eager to have
God,
their
that's
children
awful.
act. They don't really think, what is the child pretending that is happening to her?
Yes.
And then how is she internalizing that? There's to me, aside from all of the, like, Lindsay Lohan sad stories that you hear, to me, the most intense thing about being a child actor is that you sometimes have to cry and you have to get yelled at, and sometimes terrible things happen to this little character, and you're just a kid. You're just a 5-year-old kid.
And you basically have to numb yourself and be dead inside from a young age, because you can't internalize that any other way.
And then what does that do for your emotional development later?
Yeah.
I always think about
all
that
the time, and I think about like when these kids are, because it's always a scene that's like something horrible that I'm like, this poor little actor.
Yes.
I always think about, like, this is probably the first time this child has learned that a dad might kill their own child.
Yes.
They're putting this
always
together
think
that
about
this is
that.
a reality for somebody.
Yes.
And I do know that because one of the cases I covered, the woman who was the woman who was playing the woman who was murdered. Oh, it was the one, I don't remember her name. It was the woman who was found tied to the tree. That really terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So the woman who played the reenactor, remember, she wrote a letter to the family.
Oh, yes.
So, like, apologizing because the family was so upset. And So the reenactors have to have some sort of idea, because then the family members come and watch sometimes.
Yeah.
So imagine, they have to know what the person did and who they're portraying.
Yeah.
And it is just like they're probably getting paid like day player rate, which who knows what that was in 1990.
Yeah.
It's not a career maker. So
No.
it's really, really interesting to take that perspective.
Yeah.
Well, that was great, KB. That was really, really well done.
Yep,
And thank
great
you for
job.
the extra side story about David.
I
loved
just
it.
couldn't not.
You know we love a Dave or a Davy side story. We love a Dave Davy side story.
Davy Peaches.
If anyone needs to revisit Davy Peaches,
Always revisit Davy Peaches.
you must.
Anytime you're feeling down.
I might need to go do that right now. All right. So we have our second Lost Loves of the episode. And this is the story of Jeff Fisher. And he was the son of divorced parents. And this time in his life takes place in 1971. So after Jeff Fisher's parents divorced in 1969, his father left the family and left his mother, Linda, to raise him and his sister alone. And his mother, Linda's on this segment, and she explains, quote, "It was very hard on Jeff after his dad left because he was very close to him, and suddenly he was gone. And Jeff went through the feelings that a lot of children have, that maybe it was my fault, maybe I said something, maybe I did something that made my dad leave. Jeff was a very sensitive, shy little boy, so things like that bothered him a lot." I think he's around like 7 or 8 at this time. So one of the reenactments we see, it's so sad, but the mother's taking Jeff into a barber shop with all men in there, and he like doesn't want to go, and she says, "I know that you want to be in there with your dad, but he's not coming back for a while, or we don't know when he's coming back," or and it's probably. Kids still have these feelings today, of course, but I think especially back then with such rigid gender roles, it's probably was even harder. Like, he didn't feel like his mom was even supposed to take him into a barber shop.
Totally.
And I think that most children are used to knowing people that are divorced, even if it's not as stigmatized as it was back then as well.
Yeah.
And then we see Jeff, and he says, "I would always ask my mom, 'Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy?' And she would just say, 'He's gone away, and I don't know when he's coming back.' It was just real hard because I was close to him." So Linda, who's this single mother, badass, felt bad that Jeff, her son, did not have a father figure in his life. So in 1971, she took him to Big Brothers of America, which is, of course, part of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, an organization that paired young boys with adult male role models. So right away, without knowing what the segment was about, when I was watching, I was very, very, very nervous. But then I remembered it was a Lost Love, so it can't be bad. And I thought, oh, maybe I should go into like abuse in the organization. But I feel like that's not respectful to this positive story, so I'm not going to do that.
Agreed.
But of course, it can be a place where sexual predators will go. So, and I think that's something that organization and a lot of others are having to really do a lot of work to prevent right now, and should have done more earlier. But that's all I'll say.
Who even knows if you had to have a background check back then? Probably
Exactly.
not. Yeah.
Probably
But
not.
this is not that story, thank goodness. So he went to Big Brothers of America and was paired with his big brother, John Novotny, in Jeff's hometown of Elkhart, Indiana. So John Novotny was a local salesman and father of a 2-year-old daughter who decided to also join Big Brothers of America to help mentor a little boy, which is really nice if
Yeah.
people have the right intentions. And so he became a positive male role model that Jeff needed, and over the next 10 months, they spent many weekends together. So we get to see reenactments of them camping, and he's asking, have you ever set up a tent? And he's like, no. And he's just this cute little boy, like, oh, you can tell it would have made him so happy. And they make a campfire, and they're out in a boat fishing. And Linda, the mother, noted that Jeff had a really significant increase in his self-confidence after this time, after being paired with John. So unfortunately, a year and a half after they became, they call them bigs and littles, so big brother, little brother, John's company, John Novotny, moved him to a different state. And so they lost that one-on-one connection in person, but they still tried to stay in touch over the phone. And in September of 1972, poor Jeff had open heart surgery to correct a congenital defect. And oh my gosh, we see this. So we see this 70s children's hospital room with like decals on the windows, and it's just such a time capsule. But we see him sitting in his bed, and he's talking to John on the phone, telling him, yeah, it hurts a little bit, but it's really, I have this bed that moves up and down. It's pretty cool. And it's nice that he was still able to talk to him on the phone, especially in that difficult of a situation.
Yeah. It's
But
very
then
nice.
they don't really say why, but after that, the two kind of lost touch. And Jeff strongly believes that having John in his life at that age set him on the right track. And at the time of this airing, Jeff was 26 when he was looking for John. And he's married and has a child of his own and is a construction worker. And the segment is just hoping to find John. So we get to see, this is also our second airport reuniting of the episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like an airport one is like extra exciting and moving.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness. So they fly Jeff Fisher, and I'm not sure if that was his mom. I think it was. But it could have been his wife, because it's the 80s, and so you can't tell how old anyone was.
In my head, as you were saying that, I was like, don't commit to that, girl. You don't commit to that.
Whoever the woman was, she had the same short hair that the mom did, but it could have been his wife. You can't tell.
80s rules. 80s rules.
Jeff Fisher flies to where John is, and John's waiting for him in the airport. And it is pre-9/11. Of course, you wait right at that gate, honey, right as they're coming off that plane.
Yes.
And Jeff Fisher truly melts back into like a 7-year-old boy.
No.
It is so sad
He really
and
did.
so nice and so touching.
So
Yeah.
sweet.
Oh, he just like melts, and so they hug and cry. He's
He like
crying.
presses his face into his chest for a
His
second.
his hat's all like
Yeah.
crooked because of how he's hugging him. And John Novotny is like, you look just like your picture, man. Like he's trying to kind of hold it together.
Yeah.
And so just so sweet. And then John says, it's unbelievable. I had absolutely no idea that Jeff was looking for me. And once the show aired, so he didn't watch this segment when it aired, but he said, once the show aired, people from Elkhart and from Michigan started calling me on the phone telling me that I was on television and that a boy named Jeff Fisher was looking for me. We must have got 35 calls that night and at least that many the next night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so by this time, he had moved to Tacoma, Washington, again with Tacoma.
We
So...
love it.
But he had friends still, kind of all over the country that called their house, which is so sweet. And then Jeff says, I've been wanting to say thank you to this guy for 18 years, and whatever it took to be able to come out and do that, I was willing to do it. It's so nice.
Yeah. And I feel like so many times these guys just have no idea what an impact they've made.
Yeah.
And it's just so nice.
Totally. And John says, when I joined Big Brothers of America, like I had a daughter, and I was working. I didn't know if I'd even have time to do it right or make a difference. And he's like, I guess I did it right, and I was able to do what I wanted to do, which is so nice.
Yeah.
So John Novotny, I couldn't find anything on Jeff Fisher. It's a really common name, and I'm not even sure if he's still in Indiana. But John Novotny lived a long life. He passed away in 2014. And from what I can find, it sounds like Jeff Fisher and John Novotny stayed in touch until his death, which is really sweet.
That is so nice. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
For something that he was just like, I'm not sure if I'll be good at this. Like he.
Yes. It's so wonderful and so amazing that Jeff Fisher got paired with like exactly who he needed. Too, because it could have been someone else who was like not the right fit or whatever. So all I could find more was just a few articles that sort of explain everything again. It's always fun to see these old newspapers saying the television program Unsolved Mysteries helped reunite, reporting on this still kind of new thing. And then I was able to find John's obituary. And so he also lived in Flint, Michigan, and was from Detroit. So that's why he says people from Elkhart, which is Indiana, and Michigan were calling.
Okay.
And so I'll just read a little of his obituary because it's actually really nice. It says, John Stephen Novotny was born June 17th, 1940 in Detroit, Michigan. He battled a year-long bout with cancer and bravely entered heaven on May 13th, 2014 in Tacoma, Washington. He's survived by his wife, Janine, of 44 years.
Wow.
Children, John, Lisa, and Scott, so he had more kids, and 6 grandchildren. John, the only child of John and Maisie Novotny, grew up in Flint, Michigan. Along with his wife, Janine, John resided in Elkhart, Indiana, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, before moving the family to Tacoma, Washington in 1982. John was a loving husband, father, grandfather, and a great friend to many. He was very generous with his time and resources. John loved people and impacted many lives. He is greatly missed. So it just sounds like that was not just a one-off for him. He was a very generous, kind, a true honey.
I love it.
So it's a happy ending, and I wish I could have found something on Jeff, but I was unable to, so I hope all is well with them as also. But
Yeah, that was a good one.
a happy ending for that segment too.
All right. Things to share and things to feel.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I have been consuming anything new. I did get my family, we love to paddleboard. We always rent them every summer and go camping with them. And so I said, why don't we just own these? And they're honestly not that expensive. So we bought 2, and we've been out a few times already. And it's something fun we can do with my daughter. And
What did your daughter say about it when you were paddleboarding?
she said, this is the best thing of my life, over and over and over and over again.
So nice.
So nice.
And she's, for those that know her, she can be a bit of a nervous Nelly, which I love about her, because I never have to, knock on wood, worry about her getting into danger, because she can't even finish watching a movie. So they tried to watch Zootopia yesterday, and she could not get through it.
Too scary?
Too scary, I guess.
Oh no.
So and it's just a fun way to like explore where I've always lived in a new way, with a new thing and new purpose, to find new places to paddle around. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I love that. I have a recommendation. It is a documentary about John Wayne Gacy on NBC's Peacock channel, their new streaming channel. So I paid for Peacock because I guess through my credit card I got it for like $1.99 a month or something.
Oh.
So worth it, even if it's just to watch The Office for the billionth time. One of our listeners, I didn't write her name down, posted on Facebook about it and had asked if any of us had watched it. So I got Peacock and I watched it. And generally, I'm not a huge serial killer person because it's just usually way too gross for me. But this documentary is really great. It's video footage of Gacy. So if you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, that's understandable, I guess.
I guess. No.
I mean,
but no.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like our listeners of this podcast aren't necessarily like murder people.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
just kind of like unsolved mysteries, which is very different from, like knowing everything about a serial killer the way we do.
But Gacy, Gacy's
yeah.
got tendrils everywhere, even in
Sure.
Sufjan Stevens songs. So.
That's true. Well, yeah. So you probably know about John Wayne Gacy, but if you don't know the facts, he was convicted in 1980 of murdering 33 young men, boys. 29 of whom were found buried in the crawl space and the yard of his home. So Gacy was executed in 1994, but this docuseries, it's a 6-part docuseries. It has video footage of him talking about himself and his crimes in prison. And it's, really, really insightful, interesting stuff. And then they interviewed his family members. They interview the members of the family, the family members of the boys who were murdered. And it is really one of the most well-done documentaries that I've seen in a very long time.
Wow.
In terms of like a very straightforward documentary that doesn't have a position, doesn't take a stand. It's just kind of giving you all of the facts. It's really, really well done. So yeah, I recommend it.
What's it called?
It's called John Wayne Gacy, The Devil in Disguise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That actually reminded me that I actually did a couple weeks ago now start Sons of Sam.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, it is good. It's very much, what is the reporter's name? The one that
I haven't
did so
seen
much
it.
coverage on the case.
I don't know.
Oh, the one that Sam would like every time he wrote about Sam would like
He would
act
call
out.
him out by name. Yeah, we talked about it when she did the case.
that
but
was so long ago.
Anyway, it's very much from his perspective of like,
Maury Terry.
yes, Maury Terry. It was very much from his perspective, like the whole thing is about there's multiple people involved. It's not just this one guy.
Yeah.
So,
Does that feel compelling or like it could be true?
Or is it sensational? I've heard people say both. About
yeah, I only watched one episode, but it's definitely not like wackadoodle or anything.
it. Mm-hmm.
I need to watch it because
yeah.
that just wasn't in any of my research out. I mean, if it were in my research, it was from a very much like this is a crazy thing that some people think conspiracy theory, basically. So to hear it be talked about in this more like serious way, and I know this documentarian's a really like reliable person. I think I've heard them interviewed or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's good.
I
and
remember
it's
when you
interesting.
covered it, Eliza, that you talked about other people potentially being involved.
Well, because
But
that was Maury
something
Terry's
else.
whole big thing.
Yeah.
So,
So we definitely did talk about it, but like you said, it was sort of just like immediately dismissed.
Yeah.
So. Cool.
Yeah, I need to watch that. Do we have any reviews from True Sweeties to read?
we do. So this one is by Wanderer239, and it says, favorite podcast. The quick banter keeps me smiling. I've begun watching Unsolved Mysteries after listening to Alison, Karlin, and Eliza through the pandemic and appreciating their company. Aw. This podcast really brought sunshine to my days. Alison is a scamp. I love her character and attitude. I love that you are good friends. It must be the special sauce. We'll do Patreon soon. Heart.
That's
She's a little scamp.
I mean, okay, I'll take it.
You're a pip and a scamp.
I've been called worse, that's for sure.
I love it.
All right. What? Oh, man. Next episode.
Oh,
Oh,
get
shit.
ready. Get under your blankies. You're going to be scared.
Get under your blankies.
We're going to hold flashlights up under our chins while we record, and we're going to talk like this.
we are?
time.
Because it's a spooky episode. What are we talking about?
Oh, well, I have the haunting of the St. James Hotel in New Mexico. There are many St. James hotels. This one is in New Mexico. So many times I double and triple checked that what I was researching was the correct hotel because I had flashes of horror that I would report on the completely wrong one or something. But yep, it's a ghosty, honey, a Western ghosty.
Ooh. And then, so it's a 4-segment episode, so it's going to be in 2 parts. So the second segment is another ghosty. It's another unexplained segment because, you know, we love those ghosts. We love those little spooky critters. So I am covering the Hardin House haunting.
And then in part 2, there is a missing segment about Marianne Perez.
And then there's a fraudie of Dr. John Anderson. So go to patreon.com/Resolved Mysteries Podcast if you're interested in supporting us there. If you subscribe at the $5 a month level or higher, you're going to get ad-free episodes, 2 extra episodes a month, and other goodies. Like we've been saying, we're going on summer hiatus from July 26th to August 25th, but patrons will still get short stacks and extra content, so they'll have an episode every week for the break. And we currently have over 50 Patreon short stack episodes on there now, so if you're a patron, you can binge those while we're on our break too. It's like 40 hours of content, so now is a pretty good time to become a patron, not gonna lie.
Amazing.
To see photos we reference in the episodes, follow us on Instagram at Resolved Mysteries Podcast and Facebook and Twitter at Resolve the Pod. You can contact us at resolvedmysteriespodcast.com, resolvedmysteriespodcast@gmail.com, or at our P.O. Box 14005, Portland, Oregon 97293. If you want to mail us your favorite unsolved mystery story or cold case or any nostalgia you have surrounding the show, that would be awesome. We love to hear from you all. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you like us, leave a 5-star review and tell a friend. Tell 10 friends. Tell 100 friends. Post it on social media. Put it in the sky. Send it to the moon. Tell everybody.
Please send it to the moon.
Shout it from the rooftops, baby.
Shout it from the rooftops how much you love this podcast. And for every review we receive, we donate $1 to an organization. And this month's organization is the Epilepsy Foundation. And we love you so.
Oh, we really do.
Oh, we do. We do so much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Please send us your stories for listener short stack episodes.
There's so many S's.
I also love that it must be a double, please.
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 Please, send us your stories for listener short stack episodes.